do as you please with this information that I'm presenting to you. It's just something I thought was rather intriguing, and I thought you might want to see it. The resurgence of Mr. Bryce Young here, it has got to be studied. And if you're a Panthers fan, you got to be grinning from ear to ear. This is what you love, not just like, but love to see in your second-year quarterback. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, hope all of you having a great Wednesday. Hope all of you having a great week. If not, hope this video can make it a little bit better. Man, oh man, we got to talk about the man, the myth, the legend himself, Bryce Young. It's been a minute since we've checked up on old Bryce Young, and it's also been a minute since we've talked about the NFL. Most of you know this is mainly a college football channel, especially during the college football season. So if we're talking about anything outside of college football, you best believe it's important, and important it is. We are here to talk about what I'm going to label as the amazing and dang near unreal resurgence of Bryce Young. We're not doing no intro, none of that. I don't got time to waste. You don't got time to waste either. This is the one and only thing we're going to be talking about. Bryce doesn't need an intro, anything like that. You should know who this guy is. If you don't know who he is, you got to be living under a rock. And also, if you don't know what his story is, you got to be living under a rock. 5-star recruit coming out of high school, very prestigious quarterback, decides to go to Alabama, where he dominated and won the Heisman Trophy. Fast forward time a little bit. The Carolina Panthers, they trade all their picks. They get the #1 overall selection, and who they take? Bryce Young. It wasn't a controversial pick, but some people thought they might have went with CJ Stroud, but ultimately, they went with Young. His first year with the Panthers, which was last year, not so good, but everybody gave him the benefit of the doubt. Why? Because number one, he's playing for the Panthers. They suck. And number two, he's a rookie quarterback. Nobody's going to criticize the #1 pick in their first year playing for a bad team and franchise. That's just not going to happen. However, what does happen is by year two, that's where expectations, they rise a little bit. Let's get one thing straight. People did not expect, heading into the season, Bryce Young to carry the Carolina Panthers to the Super Bowl, but they most certainly expected them to be a little bit better. And what wound up happening? Well, first couple games for the Panthers and Bryce Young, it wasn't so good. They got completely blown out in both of those games. Bryce Young also didn't do himself any favors. He didn't play good. And by week 3, he was benched. And I'll be the first to tell you, I'm not going to act like I didn't say it was looking bad for Bryce Young, because I did. I stated it in a video. Bryce Young had a horrible start to the season, and what made all this look even worse is when Andy Dalton came in and took over the reins, he went out there and balled like Kobe. I mean, he was dominating. Well, when I say he was dominating, it was just for that one game. And what everybody say? Well, dang, this is a bad look for Bryce Young because the Panthers are struggling. Bryce Young, he's not doing anything. Then you insert Andy Dalton, and the Panthers, they look really good. There's a lot of people writing off Bryce Young, labeling him as a bust, and you can't even fault the people because that's how it was looking. But the Andy Dalton phase would quickly, I guess you could say ironically enough, phase out. Come to find out, that insane Andy Dalton performance, it was just a fluke, and after that, the Panthers, they went back to sucking. Down the road, Bryce Young would eventually take over the job again, and he started playing I'm not going to say a lot of bit, I think that's stretching it way too far, but a little bit better. It looked like he was more comfortable, and let me show you this 4-game stretch. It's against New Orleans, 16 for 26, 170, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. Against the Giants, 15 for 25, buck 26. Not great, but here's the kicker. 0 interceptions in that game, 1 touchdown. Took care of the ball, put his team in a position to win. The next 2 games, although they lost to the Chiefs, 30-27, and the Buccaneers, 26-23, Bryce Young played good. 21 for 35, 263 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 INTs. Against the Buccaneers, 26 for 46, 300 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 INTs. You're starting to see the trend here. Bryce Young, and these numbers don't do it a lot of justice. If you watch these games, you know what I'm talking about. He not only looked like he was playing better, he looked more comfortable. For the first time in a while, it actually looked like, okay, this kid actually knows what he's doing and he can lead a team to victory. Because I don't care what anybody tells you, it did not look that way in year 1 in the first couple games to start this season. In the last 3 games of the season, I really want y'all to pay attention to this because this paints the picture perfectly. If this doesn't go to show you how good Bryce Young's been playing, I don't know what will. Against the Arizona Cardinals, by the way, booted the Cardinals out of the playoffs. They won 36-30 in overtime. Bryce Young, 17 for 26, 158 through the air, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, taking care of the ball. Next week against the Buccaneers, they got blown out, but Bryce Young, 15 for 28, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 INTs. Against the Falcons, most recently, we're going to talk about that game in just a second. They won in overtime. Bryce Young had the game-winning drive, 44. They put up a 44 burger on offense. Bryce Young doesn't play defense, so can't really knock the 38 points. 25 for 34. That's pretty good. 251 through the air, completed 74% of his passes, 3 touchdowns. That's just through the air, by the way. He had 2 rushing, 5 total, 0 INTs. He orchestrated a perfect, and I mean perfect, game-winning drive in overtime. Atlanta never touched it. In Bryce Young's last 3 games, he had over 600 passing yards, 7 touchdowns just through the air, 0 interceptions. He also added a long 3 rushing touchdowns. So total, 10 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Impressive. I don't care who you are. I tweeted this out after the Atlanta game. Bryce Young finished 25 for 34, 251 yards, 5 total touchdowns, in the game-winning TD drive. A confident Bryce Young is a scary Bryce Young. He has continued to get better and better every single week. Maybe his best game of his career. I watched that entire Atlanta game start to finish, and that looked like the Bryce Young we saw at Alabama. That looked like the Bryce Young that won the Heisman Trophy. But here's where things get even more interesting. I stumbled across this on Twitter. This is a comparison with a guy who he was being compared to a lot heading to the draft, CJ Stroud. Stroud, 2,274 total yards. Young, 2,335. CJ had 9 total touchdowns. Bryce Young had 20. Young had 6 interceptions. Stroud, 8. Do as you please with this information that I'm presenting to you. It's just something I thought was rather intriguing, and I thought you might want to see it. I already know what some of you are going to say in the comment section. Matt, are you trying to insinuate and state that Bryce Young is better than CJ Stroud? And that's not what I'm saying at all. I just think the numbers are intriguing, like I stated, and I think most people would agree with this as well. CJ Stroud is playing for the better overall team. The Panthers are still a hot mess. They're not as bad as they were last year, but they got a lot of problems they got to fix on both sides of the ball. But I tell you this much, Bryce Young looks like he's ready to rock and roll, and he's in that groove. I just remember seeing Bryce Young do all those interviews and press conferences when he got benched. I can't get that image out of my head. How sad Bryce Young was. It made me sad. He didn't want to be there, but more importantly, he lost his confidence, and that is a scary thing, especially if you're a professional athlete, because if you don't have confidence, you don't have anything. The resurgence of Mr. Bryce Young here, it has got to be studied, and if you're a Panthers fan, you got to be grinning from ear to ear. This is what you love, not just like, but love to see in your second-year quarterback. It's all about improvement. It's not about winning the Super Bowl, how many games did you win? No. Just can you get a little bit better every single game? And Bryce Young, he's continued to do that. And why I bring up the CJ Stroud thing, and we're going to talk about it a little bit here, CJ Stroud got worse this year. He regressed. And I'm not going to hold it against him too much and say, oh, yeah, CJ Stroud had a fluke season his rookie year. No. I love CJ Stroud game, and I'm going to chop it up to what most people chop it up to, the sophomore slump. The term sophomore slump is out there for a reason because you see it quite often. It's not rare. Guys go out there, ball out the rookie year, they have all these expectations and pressure on them in their second year, aka their sophomore year, and they lay an egg. And the reason that tends to happen is because as a rookie quarterback, you don't know what you don't know. What I mean by that, you don't understand that you're not supposed to be that good, and you're a rookie, so you're not feeling all that pressure. You don't have any expectations. You just say, you know what, I'm going to go out here and play a ball, and ironically enough, or it's not a coincidence, when you don't have pressure and you're playing freely, that's when you play your best. When do people tend to mess up the most in this life? When they're under pressure. Stroud didn't have all that pressure last year, so that's why he played so well. This year, had a lot of pressure, and you saw what happened. You saw it transpired. Stroud's going to bounce back. I think you'd be an absolute idiot to just completely write him off like people were writing off Bryce Young after having a bad start to this season. The only thing I ever stated, and I'm standing 10 toes down on this, I thought his career at Carolina was done. I didn't think his professional football career in the NFL was done, but his stint at Carolina is donezo's. I thought they was going to roll with Andy Dalton. Maybe they go after another quarterback, but as we saw, Bryce Young got the job back. Andy Dalton, he got in that incident or whatever, and it looks like Bryce Young, he's here to stay. Is this going to work out for Bryce Young? Is it good for him? Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see. I'm not really a fan of him playing for the Panthers because that's a terrible franchise and organization. Just for Bryce Young's sake, I much rather and I prefer him to go elsewhere, but probably not going to happen, so no need to talk about that. Anybody that knows ball, you know this is true, and anybody that's denying it, still at this point in time, he just sounds stupid. Bryce Young can play. He is a legit starter in the NFL. Nobody's going to question that. Now, whether he is a Super Bowl contending and winning quarterback, different conversation for a different day. We're not going to go that far. But there's one thing I know for sure. He's a legit starter. I don't think anybody's going to argue with that, especially the way he ended this season. And here's why if I was a Carolina Panthers fan or Bryce Young fan, I'd be feeling extremely great about all this. I don't even think he's fully tapped into his potential. I don't even think he's 40% into it. He is still learning. He's still growing every single day, and he's got a lot to improve on, which yet again is extremely worrisome if you're an opposing team in this league because he just went off. I mean, completely went off against the Falcons. You mean to tell me Mr. Matt be great? He's got room and a lot of room at that to improve? Yeah. That is worrisome. I'm not going to say he's going to dominate this league, but if he gets the right pieces around him, I think the Panthers can make some noise next year. Why I love Bryce so much is because not only is he a smart individual, not only is he athletic, not only is he one of the greatest passers to ever touch a football, I love him so much because of his work ethic. He is one of the hardest workers in the room, and why you'd love to have a Bryce Young on your team is because He's also one of the most talented people and players in the room. He's one of the few people in this life that you just don't hate on. Nobody hates Bryce Young. You're not going to see it. People love this guy, and it's not complicated to know why. He's just so likable. He's one of the few athletes I've ever seen where he goes out here, balls out, beats a team, and the fans on the opposing team he just beats like, man, I hate Alabama, I hate the Panthers, but I got to respect Bryce Young, and I love his game. He lit us up tonight. There's many more things I could say. All in all, the future is looking bright for Bryce Young, and I'm happy for you, man. Keep balling out. Let me know your thoughts on all this down below. But